The following is a Comfortably Zoned Radio Network production.
We are back. Comfortably Zoned Radio. I'm Ralph Tyko, and the guest today is Jerry Feitelberg of A's Baseball, past, present, and future, on this network. But Jerry, this is a conversation that doesn't necessarily include baseball. Could, and we'll talk some later if the spirit moves you. But you're one of my well-informed political sages, let's put it this way. I look to you for advice sometimes when things are absolutely crazed in this country. And, you have the benefit of the years to accumulate wisdom. Have you ever seen anything like this in your life?
No. And I was born during the Roosevelt administration, and when I went to Roosevelt died, Harry Truman became president, and then Eisenhower. Those are my formative years. I think Truman was one of the greatest presidents we ever had. The Eisenhower years were great. People going to college in those days, they had the pick of the litter. Whatever you wanted to do, you just picked out what you wanted to do, and you went into that field, and most of us came through there successful. Then, of course, we had John Kennedy, and then the murder of Kennedy, and Lyndon Johnson, Richard Nixon, and so on, and up until today, up to the present time. And the presidency has devolved into a swamp with this character out of New York that's sitting in the White House right now. It's the worst I've ever seen. It's just total chaos.
Okay, now I look at him as someone who just benefited from the way things were. Not that I'm condoning him in any way. I think he's a despicable human being who is, as you describe it, at the bottom of that swamp. That said, he's an opportunist. Who put him there? What was the situation that put him there? And who indeed are his supporters? 48% of the populace support this guy?
No, 48% of the voters that voted supported him. You have to remember that maybe barely over 50% of the population voted, and he did not get a majority of those votes, but he won the Electoral College. The United States is probably the only country in the world where you can win the popular vote and lose the election because of the quirky nature of the Electoral College. So I don't think he has.
But those rules were enforced before the election.
Oh yeah, I don't think he has support of 48% of the people.
Before he was elected, he had a statutory rape suit going on with a 13-year-old girl. And I say,
yeah, and I don't know how that's been, what the disposition of that case has been. It still may be on the docket, but while he's president, he can't proceed. If he were a private citizen, it could go forward at that point in time.
But
that's
one of the many things that everyone knew about this guy. They knew about his business acumen, and I put that in parentheses, in quotation marks, because he went bankrupt 3 or 4 times. So and as a human, we found out what kind of a human being he was when he mocked the reporter with a physical disability during one of his speeches. Now, so we know what he is. Who are the people that, for whatever reason, excuse his racism, his vulgarity, his misogynistic ways, and his ignorance of what it takes to be the president, his lack of diplomacy, all of that. Who supports him? That's what scares me. Who is Americana? Who in Europe do they look at as the ugly American these days?
Yeah, you brought up a lot of points, and there are a lot of people, a lot of white working class people who voted for him, who in the past were traditionally in the Democratic camp, but over the years they felt that the Democrats no longer represented them, and so the Democrats have lost that support from that base, and we know about the Christian right. A lot of the Christian right preachers are telling their flock that Trump was selected by God to become president, and they support him for whatever reason. And their support hasn't wavered in spite of all the bad publicity that he's received. He still has their support. And I don't know what's going to take for them to say, hey, this guy doesn't deserve to be president. This is not what the United States is. I don't know.
But I could tell those people that Pence doesn't deserve to be president, and he would be their man more so than Trump. And yes. Pence, on certain levels, is less qualified because he crosses and blurs the line between church and state more than Trump. But
I agree with you on
does
that.
Not show the hypocrisy of the evangelistic crazy folks? I mean, what can I say? I'm holding back.
It's mystifying.
Really,
the whole thing. It's mystifying. Logic does not play any part in their decision. Any person that is reasonable and looks at the facts and considers what has to. It considers the facts and all the things that have happened. I cannot see how they could ever vote for him, and yet they just say we have alternate facts. They came up with this alternate fact stuff, and it just blows me away.
Well, his attorney says truth is not truth, and
I can explain that. As crazy as that seems. There's a saying that perception is reality, and how you perceive something is your truth, and that's what he was trying to say. Your truth is different than someone else's truth, and that's why they have judges, because when you go in and you present your facts, and believe me, in a court of law, it's facts and documentation, and then the judge decides which side is right based on the law. So, Giuliani should have known better, but what can I tell you? The whole thing is comical. It's tragedy. It's a tragedy what's going on. The United States is...
What with Manfred's, if I'm not pronouncing that correctly, excuse me, Manfred's conviction yesterday and the pleading of Roy Cohen, not Roy Cohen, but a different Cohen.
Oh, Michael Cohen. Manafort and
McCarthyism in the same way that this crazy brings back Nazism. But Michael Cohen reached a plea agreement, and liar that he has been, he is tempting the Mueller investigation with some facts that may or may not tie Trump to the collusion with Russia and all of that. Should this not be checkmate? Should the Republicans in Congress say, wait a minute, we can't have this guy, we got midterm elections coming up, we can't have him be the poster boy for our party. We're the grand old party. It used to be when we were young where the differences between the Republicans and Democrats were minute. There were certain senators who were considered middle-of-the-road senators, guys like Keating, and those guys back in the day You couldn't.
Yeah, they had Nelson
Democrats or
Rockefeller. They had
Republican.
Jake Javits. These guys were called liberal Republicans. And
There's no such thing now. There is no such thing as a liberal Republican.
There were very few moderates. Yeah.
Okay. Yes.
There were the conservative Democrats all went into the Republican fold when the Civil Rights Act of 1964 became the law, and which is sad. And Lyndon Johnson said, "Well, we lost the South," and they did. But what did they lose? When you see what they're voting for, I'm not sure that was such a bad thing. But I don't understand, how people who can go to college or people who are educated and people who can read and people who know what this country stands for could ever support such a man as Donald Trump. I do not understand it, and I will never understand it.
Yeah, and in my opinion, this country really wasn't great. It was built on imperialism and founded by slave owners. So it wasn't great. But
the country has flaws. But we have a Constitution and a Bill of Rights.
But it was the best in the world, and I can't really say that. Now, I'm embarrassed as someone who lived through the Vietnam thing, lived through the Bay of Pigs, and all of that. People, when Kennedy was going through the Bay of Pigs thing, people were going, he's a Republican, he's a Democrat. Emergencies supersede that. But at this point, I don't see us coming together along those lines if we have an emergency. Because Trump is the guy with his finger on the button.
Yeah, well, I have to tell you about the Bay of Pigs. I was on active duty at Fort Dix, New Jersey, when the Bay of Pigs happened, and we were put on alert. They were going to put us on planes to go down to Cuba. Fortunately, that never happened.
Yeah.
But you don't know what he can do with his finger on the button, and that is, you just don't know about his sanity. You don't know what is going through his mind. And he tweets at 1:00 in the morning. He sent out a tweet this morning, and he puts the craziest stuff out there. Who knows about his sanity? Who knows what he's thinking?
Well, my thing is there's some sort of control. Do the people on the inside, the CIA, what have you, do they have their eye on him during the day? In other words, you got a button.
Yeah.
There are certain things.
Yeah.
Can he be removed from the room discreetly? I guess. Can
I don't know.
he take a leave of absence? Do you see a Queeg, Captain Queeg with the strawberries in the making? He's rambling things.
Could be, and you don't know what he's going to do to save his rear end. We don't know. He may be going to jail along with Michael Cohen and Paul Manafort and a bunch of other people. Who knows?
Yeah, but we got to get him out of there first, and I don't understand why the Republicans aren't taking a good hard look at this point and not wanting to back him in the midterm elections.
Yeah, I don't know. They're afraid to start hearings on the impeachment of the president. They're not going to do it before the elections. And if the Democrats win the elections, there will be a committee formed to go over this stuff and perhaps begin the process of impeachment. And of course, then there's the trial in the Senate. And in our lifetimes, we only had one trial. And now there have been two presidents impeached, Andrew Johnson and Bill Clinton. And Bill Clinton was impeached not for having sex with an intern, but for raising his right hand, for lying under oath.
Yeah.
And it was considered obstruction of justice. What Clinton did was a sliver of what this Trump man has done. just a sliver. There's no way does it ever even compare to it. But they had the impeachment trial, and they did not have the 67 votes to impeach Clinton, and that's going to happen with Trump. They will not have the 67 votes. Unless they have the proof, and it's so egregious that if they didn't vote for him, the senators would be, we do not have a recall mechanism in this country for any of the elected officials. They're in office to the end of their term. Some of them have resigned under pressure, but there's no recall mechanism. California has a recall mechanism for their governor for the state offices, and which was used against Gray Davis several years ago when Arnold Schwarzenegger became governor. And sometimes that's okay because people don't have to put up with a bad politician for the length of his term. But we don't have that on a national level. There's no mechanism for recall. So we're stuck with Trump until the 2020 election. And then the people will speak. But again, as we have said so many times in this program so far, we don't understand why he has the support of anybody, let alone 40% of the voters, 45%, whatever the percentage is.
Okay, I have something to ask you. If they impeach Trump, naturally, Pence becomes president. But
right.
I heard something, and this might have just slipped by me. It was, if they impeach Trump for treasonous acts, all the members of his cabinet go, including the vice president as well.
I hadn't heard that. I'm not aware of that. That would be interesting if that was.
But it's got to be for treason. If they, otherwise, you could have the same situation where Pence comes in, pardons Trump like Ford pardoned Nixon, and we may never get to the bottom of it. And there's also the possibility that Trump could pardon Manafort, or however he pronounces his name.
It's possible. I don't think it's going to happen, but it is. He may do it if the Republicans hold the House and he's in command for 2 more years. He may be pardoned. I thought it was absurd for him to say that Manafort was a brave man and he didn't break. He sounded like a mafia
didn't break.
boss.
As if protecting him is the definition of breaking.
Right.
Giving away state secret might be the definition of breaking, but not to protect this big guy, this bane of our existence. One more thing.
Yeah.
Does he have the ability to fire Mueller, the lead investigator?
He probably could, but that would doom him too. So he's probably seething today. He's pissed. He's permanently pissed at Jeff Sessions for recusing himself from the Russian investigation. Rod Rosenstein has earned some of his ire. He's taken on the FBI, the whole Justice Department, and these people. We want the Justice Department. We want the Attorney General's office to be strong, to follow the law.
Who's going to trump up charges on innocent people?
Right, we want the FBI to do the same thing.
I say that jokingly, in a way, kidding on the square. But let me ask you this. Taking on the press is his worst sin. That's That's not socialism, but fascism. That's Nazism.
That's what Hitler did.
Yeah.
The same words. The press is the enemy of the people. And don't believe what you read. Don't believe what you see. Yeah, and I don't know when we see the news, to a degree, we're not the news directors. There used to be the fairness doctrine in television broadcasting. If you had a Republican on for 5 minutes, you'd have a Democrat on for 5 minutes, and both sides could show their debate their positions. You don't have that anymore. They did away with the fairness doctrine, and that's how it gave rise to Fox News, which is nothing more than a propaganda arm of the Republican Party. Nothing more. And so it's all one-sided. I saw Sean Hannity defending the president, that a 13-minute clip the other day after this, and to Hannity, Trump is a saint. I mean, didn't he look at the facts? I don't know what he's looking at. I don't know what he's seeing at, through what prism he's looking at, to see the news, to see the facts. The facts are...
Hey, did you happen to catch Alan Dershowitz of Harvard trying to defend Trump on CNN the other day?
No, I didn't see that.
It's kind of funny.
I was probably at the ball game. I was probably having fun at the ball game.
And I can give you the basis for that. Trump is nothing if not a Zionist. Now I'm Jewish, you're Jewish. So
what's that got to do with it? What's Trump being a Zionist? What's that got to do with anything?
So there are an awful lot of Jews in this country defending Trump because he is an incredible defender of some of the, you might say, unreasonable tactics. Case could be made. I'm just said, people have said that of the Israelis, and I don't happen to believe that, because I happen to believe that Iran and the Palestinians want Israel wiped off the face of the earth.
Yes, sure.
A lot of Jews make their decision of who to vote for and who to throw money behind and who to support based on Trump's being an ally, a particularly fond ally of Netanyahu.
Yes, and Netanyahu, I've heard the same argument. They're very, very pleased with his Trump's position supporting Israel. Obama came under a lot of criticism for a lot of right-wing Jews as not being as sympathetic to Israel as they thought he should be. But keep in mind, every American president supports Israel. But again, Netanyahu and Obama didn't see eye to eye, so there was some friction there. And especially since the Republicans invited Netanyahu to speak in the Senate, which should have been an invitation from Obama. You remember that a couple of years ago. And but what can I tell you? That people believe what they want to believe. I think Obama tried to be more even-handed in his approach to the Palestinian-Israeli situation, and he lost some support from the more right-wing Jews in this country as a result. But as I said, Israel is the only democracy in the Middle East. Israel and America will be friends, and will be friends forever. We'll have strong relations, no matter whether Democrats and president or Republican. But
I happen to agree with you, but defending Trump based on that and that alone, really, and I think that's what Dershowitz is about.
Trump is the only candidate that never showed his tax returns. And in the tax returns, if the Democrats get control of the House, they can subpoena the tax returns, and he would have to provide the tax returns to the committee, and then they can see where the trail of loans
What if he
go.
doesn't? What if he says, "I'm not going to provide that"? I'm president.
Could they get him?
He won't be impeached for not showing his tax returns.
No, contempt of Congress. Who knows? I mean, if you and I did it, they'd throw us in the clink.
Of course. All right. I just wanted to make, because I've been seething all day. I'm glued. I don't even watch the baseball station for the last few days. I'm glued to CNN. I think we have reached crisis mode, and I guess more than anything, I want your confirmation that we really got some problems going on.
Oh, do we ever? We have his former personal attorney stating under oath that he, under the direction of I forgot what they called him.
A federal elected federal
official number one. That
right.
He was directed to pay the money to Stormy Daniels, and they also funneled the money to the National Enquirer, which paid $150,000 to Karen McDougal. And
he says it's out of my account, so no problem. But you know what?
Yeah.
If you cover something up for the election, if you write money to cover up something that would affect the election, you're breaking the law right there.
Yeah.
It doesn't have
and he
to
did.
be. And he did. He broke the law.
Yeah.
That's
it was
why
a conspiracy.
I got up this morning thinking, I'm not the only one who reads the paper. Are there Republican senators and congressmen and women all over the country going, what's the step that it will take for Republicans to lead the way? It would make me feel good if we didn't have to wait till the midterm elections to determine that this guy is impeachable.
I don't know that answer, but I do know that over the last, I remember going back to the takeover of the Republican Party by the conservatives, the right-wingers. You go back to the 1964 Republican National Convention that was held here in San Francisco in 1964, where they nominated Barry Goldwater to be president of the United States, to be the Republican candidate. They booed Nelson Rockefeller at that convention for being a liberal Republican. And you knew that was the beginning to me, that was the beginning to the end of the Republican Party. But what they have done over the years, they have a very small minority, but they're very active. They know that in most off-year elections and in most primary elections, most people don't vote. And they figured out if you take a primary election and you get maybe 25% of the people voting, and that's, if you look, you could get that information off the net. All they needed was to get the control was to have 12.5% plus one, and they could put their candidates in, and that's how they got control of the school boards, city councils, all throughout the country, knowing that people don't vote, and it's the people's fault if they have any complaints about what's going on. All they have to do is look at these numbers and say, 12.5% of the people are telling us how to live. They're telling the other 88% what they want. That's not right. Well, what is right is for the people to go out and vote and flood the voting booths come November and vote the way they should be voting. There are more Democrats registered than Republicans. A lot of independents who are middle of the road people. They see what's going on. They have no ideology, but they have to get off their rear ends and go out and vote. It's that important. Otherwise, we're going to have people like Trump and Pence, and we had Pruitt, who's gone from Pruitt and Price. All these people that are getting arrested and who are working for the president.
Yeah.
So this is what you get when you don't vote. People have to, if they want to have representative government, they got to go out and do it. And if they want to have the right people or the people they think that are going to do the job, they have to go out and meet these people, talk to them, go to their rallies, and not go for sound bites, but go for what they want to do for policy. Where do they stand on health care? Where do they stand on food stamps, helping the poor, health care for the poor, children's programs, reading programs for the children, better schools, money for the schools, money for roads? Where is this all going to come from? It comes from people working And of course, jobs is always a problem. So if I were running, the most important thing is to have people working. The more people working, the better. Educating people, the more education they have, the better your chances of getting work. And being prepared to live in a global economy. We have to compete in a global economy. And so
there's two things that come to my mind. It's not just getting jobs, because those figures are skewed by what kind of jobs. Remember the jobs that were replaced, good union jobs that are replaced by people who work 40 hours a week and can't afford to rent their own home. People who work 40 hours a week and have roommates.
Yeah.
This is, it's not just jobs, it's quality of jobs. And it's the kind of jobs, like we got Walmart, for instance, who uses the government to subsidize their employees' pay.
Right, because they go on welfare to get
them enough. So, am I right?
Yeah, they're the working poor. They don't get paid enough, and they don't get health care benefits, and so they go on,
I think
the
that's
Medicaid
the biggest.
system.
That expression, the working poor, is the biggest slap in the face on middle-class people that I've ever heard. If I'm going to work 40 hours and you call me the working poor, and a chairman of the board of X, whatever company, company X, makes 450 times per hour of what you make. If you make $1 an hour, they make $450 an hour.
Well, you have people making six-figure incomes, over $100,000 a year in the Bay Area, and they cannot afford to buy a single-family residence. You're looking at people with homes in our town of Alameda, going from I don't think you can find anything decent under $750,000. Most of the properties are $1 million or more now, and you if you're making $100,000, you cannot afford to take a mortgage. You have to, even if you come up with 20% down. So you have a mortgage of $800,000. It's a huge sum of money. It's a tough nut to crack. Your taxes on that, on the $1 million property, are $10,000 a year. And of course,
you know what else cripples the working person? Student loans that they accrued to become educated.
Yeah, and they can't pay them off.
And they're paying interest that is equivalent to bank card interest. And
yeah, well, you brought up manufacturing. You saw companies like Nike. They do all their manufacturing in Bangladesh or China or Taiwan or wherever, or Saipan, wherever they could get the cheapest amount of labor and have the clothing or the fabrics or whatever they're making shipped here to the United States. Virtually most everything you go whatever it is, you look at it, made in China, made in China, made in China. The American investments are in those factories in China too. They're making clothing over there. They're making toilets over there. They're making cell phones. They're making all these things all in China. And we have most of the factories that we have here in the United States are automated now, and we have productive workers, but our workers get more money, and you cannot compete with someone making $1 an hour, working 12 hours a day, 6 days a week. How can you compete with it? And if it's unionized, the benefits are just too high. The benefits in health and welfare for the employer are too high. So consequently, all these things are being manufactured overseas and shipped here, and it's cheaper to do that than have them manufactured here. So we have to look. That's what the worker has to deal with, and the jobs that they have are in the service industries, waitresses, health care, nursing homes.
We're driving Ubers to deliver each other pizza.
Yeah, and even that, and that's
the main,
too.
That's the main economy in the country. Driving pizzas to deliver each other driving Ubers to deliver each other pizzas.
Yeah, the companies, Uber gets around it by calling them independent contractors. They're not. They're employees of Uber. And as independent contractors, they don't get their Social Security withheld. They have to pay that themselves. They don't make the kind of money that they're making. I mean, it's ludicrous. Uber gets the commission and keeps it and says, well, you're a contractor here. We give you 1099 at the end of the year. And they've had lawsuits on that. And the poor guy that has a medallion, taxi medallion, and is working and has higher fares, their income has dropped so that they can't make a living now either. And they're trying to correct the situation, but they can't.
It's crazy. Hey, thanks for venting with me. I appreciate it. You give me
and a lot going on.
My audience a succinct look at what is going on, and it seems to be overwhelming, but if you break it down little by little, and maybe we can get a handle on it by each of us taking whatever it is that irks them and getting behind it. You know, with me, it's the separation of church and state, and I'm going to bring that
I agree with you on that. Oh yeah.
So also, with keeping in mind that we're going to eventually get rid of Trump. There's no question.
Yeah.
The walls are closing in, but what can we do to prevent Pence from taking us back even further by taking women's rights? And
that's part of the problem because it's part of the problem because if Trump is removed, he's going to be president. But if he has a Democratic House, nothing will happen for his 2 years. So and then they'll have another election. They'll have another election. But you brought up religion. Let's talk our religion, and our religion is
our
baseball.
religion is baseball, and let's start with, rather than the A's, let's start with your Boston Red Sox. There is a team that is cruising.
Man,
do you see? Do you see anything to worry about?
Yeah, well, I'm concerned that they're the only team in baseball that hasn't lost 4 straight. They've lost 3 straight the other night, which was the other day, which is the first time they did it all year. They got a brilliant pitching performance from David Price today, as they beat the Indians 7-0, and they beat the Indians last night, so they split the 4-game series. And they're 90-39, so that leaves 33 games to go. Something like that.
They're absolutely doing
120.
Well,
so I think 43 games to go. Whatever it is, they're on track to win at least 110 games. And they have the pitching. Their bullpen is okay. It's not as good as the A's bullpen, but it's not bad. The Yankees bullpen's got a couple guys on the DL. Chapman's on the DL with a knee issue. Robertson's got a sore arm, but he says he'll pitch. And CC Sabathia is going to come off the DL. He's got tendonitis in his knee. He's had that problem for a couple of years. So the Yankees pitching is a little suspect at the moment. But Aaron Judge is still on the DL. So the Red Sox have been healthy for the most part all year. Pedroia was not able to play because of his knee, and they picked up Ian Kinsler. Moreland has been doing a good job at first base, and Bogarts and Devers on the other side of the infield are terrific. And then they got a wonderful outfield with Mookie Betts, Jackie Bradley Jr., Andrew Benintendi, and J.D. Martinez plays in the outfield too when he's not DHing. The catching could be better, but Sandy Leone and Vasquez and Swihart plays first base too. They've been adequate. They're not great. They've been adequate, and they're just tearing up the league. And 90-39, that's not bad. 51 games over 500.
And the
So
team you cover in Oakland, California is exceeding expectations by quite
we're
a
going
bit.
to say leaps and bounds. And this is a team. This is a team that had finished last for 3 consecutive years in the AL West. They were picked by Sports Illustrated to win 67 games this year. They won 76. They've won one more than they did all last season. They're 76-51, I think. And they have shown they have the best record in baseball since June 16th. There's something like 42-15. And they have picked up literally 3 pitchers off the scrap heap, and they are pitching in their rotation, and they're doing just beautifully.
What's really nice is that 2 of those pitchers, Cahill and Anderson, started their careers before they had terrifying injuries with the A's. Cahill was terrific the other night, and they look solid. Do you think they can overcome Houston?
They have a good chance. Houston is now back at full strength. Well, Houston's bullpen might be suspect. Houston got back when the A's played them last week or so ago. They took 3 out of 4 from Houston, and they took 2 out of 3 here from Houston again. So they're 5-2 in the last 7 games. In Houston, they didn't have Altuve, Springer, or Correa. That was where they took 3 out of 4. But when they were here, Correa and Springer were back, and the only one missing is Altuve. And the A's beat Charlie Morton. They beat Dallas Keuchel, and they scored 4 runs on Verlander last Sunday. But the pitching wasn't that good that day, and the Astros came back and beat the A's 9-4. And that will happen because they're a good team. They got a good hitting team. But
I'm worried. Yeah. They've been streaking for I'd say a month and a half at this point. Are they due for a bit of a come down?
No, they playing good solid baseball. They picked up Mike Fiers, and Mike Fiers the other night went 7 innings, 1 hit ball. Anderson went 7 innings, 1 hit ball. Cahill has been good, especially at home. Edwin Jackson had not a rough outing, but he wasn't as good as he had been yet all season. He only lasted 4 1/3 innings yesterday. He gave up 7 hits, 4 runs. And
that's a rough outing. You don't sugarcoat it, Jerry.
Yeah.
It was
but
bad.
the A's had a chance to win it, but they didn't do it. They came back. They scored 2 runs late in the game. They had the bases loaded with no out in the 9th, and all they did was score 1 run. But that's baseball. That will happen. But they're going on the road. They're playing 4 in Minnesota against a team that's kind of shell shocked because they traded away a couple of their better players. Brian Dozier being one of them. The former All-Star second baseman. He went to the Dodgers. So their pitching has not been all that good this year. And then they go to Houston. In the Houston bullpen, they picked up Robert Osuna from Toronto in exchange for Ken Giles. Apparently, A.J. Hinch and the Astros soured on Giles. He was not that, he was sort of mediocre in the closer department. But I think that had an effect on the team. I don't know if it was good or bad, but I think it had a bad effect on the team when they traded him. Osuna had all these. He was suspended, for 75 games for domestic abuse problems.
Yeah, he's got some problems.
Yeah, he's got problems. Then he may not be fitting in with the club. And since they obtained him in the trade, they're only playing 500 baseball. So the A's are on a 7-game trip against Minnesota and Houston, and they come home to play the Mariners and the Yankees. So they got their work cut out for them. They have they got a lot, and the Mariners are a good team. The A's took 2 out of 3 from the Mariners, but the Mariners got Robinson Cano back, and they didn't do much against the Astros when they lost 2 out of 3 to the Astros up in Seattle. So I think that the A's will certainly make the second wild card slot. But if they do, then it's a 1-game playoff in New York. And you got to get the team on a plane, fly to New York, time change, 3-hour time difference. And then you get there, and then you got to face the Yankees. You know when you go from.
We've seen the A's against the Yankees several times in the last decade in the playoffs. And, you know what our mantra has always been? Slide, Jambi, slide.
Yeah, I remember that play. That was.
He wasn't listening. Jerry, what a pleasure picking your brain about life and baseball and life. What do they say? They say life is a microcosm of baseball, or do they say baseball is a microcosm of life?
I think the latter is.
Either way.
The latter. Yeah, it's great. It's been a joy to watch the A's play this year, and over the course.
I'm a Met fan, and I wish I could agree with you about joys and watching. This year hasn't been fun.
No, but we have a former Met on the team. We got Juris Familia.
Absolutely, and you will find that you will like Juris at times, and at times you will dislike Juris. He's what they call a mixed bag.
The A's were leading 1 game 7-1 or 7. They were leading 7-3, and Juris came in and walked the first 3 batters. All 3 of them scored. The A's won the game 7-6, but boy, everyone said, "Where do we get this guy from?"
Well, I think it was Earl Weaver when talking about a relief pitcher. He called him a 3-packer, meaning he smokes 3 packs of cigarettes while this guy is in the game. So. I think it was Dombrowski or someone way back. Thank you, Jerry. What fun.
Okay, it's a pleasure.
All right. We'll talk
Ralph.
again real soon. And you be well, and you be Brooks. Adios.
Okay.
Bye. Thank you for listening, everybody. Comfortably Zoned Radio Network. I'm Ralph Tyko. The weak link of it all. Adios.